I've been able to identify that it's okay to let go and to trust the team, to work with the client, to think critically, to put forward ideas to make the business better, and that you need that you're not on this alone, and that you're able to do it with others. As soon as you understand that, that opens an opportunity to grow.
Are you a solopreneur looking to 2 times your revenue to fund your lifestyle and give back? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback. So just email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. So today our guest is someone who used to run his own businesses at a very young age. Then he went to uni like most people, and he then went into corporate. But what he realized is he was given too much responsibility too quickly, and it didn't turn out. He then moved from Colombia to Australia to further his studies and to learn English. And he built a side hustle whilst he was in corporate. He left, and in 4 weeks, that side hustle disappeared. So he'll take you through that. He'll also take you how people supported him as he went through that. Now he helps solopreneurs to gain and retain more clients. So why listen? One is how to recover your business after a disaster like Jorge had. What most solopreneurs miss in marketing automation, and what to focus on to 2 times your business in the next 12 months. And at the end, I'll give you my top 3 takeaways. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Jorge Gasca from 3 Steps Business. Welcome, Jorge Gasca, to the Build, Live, Give podcast. So we're going to get to know a lot about you, Jorge, but firstly, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Very, very excited.
Great. And Jorge runs the 3 Steps Business company, and we'll talk more about that. But why don't we start first with something that your family or friends know about you that we wouldn't?
Well, one, probably that I love coffee. That's probably one of the main things. I'm a coffee lover, have probably too much during the day, but that's one of the main things, I'd say.
So do you get it from somewhere else, or you actually go further than that? You grind your own beans? How do you get your supply?
Well, this is something that definitely not many people know about me, but when I came to Australia 11 years ago, at the time of this recording, I started working with coffee shops, making coffee and so on. And then since then, I sort of, when I started working in corporate, then I sort of left it. And 3 years ago, I came back and actually made coffees on Saturday, in the first and third Saturday of the month in the North Sydney markets with a friend of mine. He's got a coffee stall in there, and we make coffee. And then we source the coffee from Guatemala. And then that's my source of coffee beans mostly. And then I've got a coffee machine at home, so I know how to make the whole lot.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, obviously I interview a lot of people from the US, and they're always saying, I just can't wait to better quality coffee takes over our world. So look, I think we're very spoiled here. Having traveled the world a lot, I think Australia's got some great coffee, which most of it's imported, as you said, has been, but I think we do a great job. Is that sort of your view? Like, I know you've traveled a lot around the world. Is our coffee pretty good?
Oh, definitely. 100%. And it's, here is more the espresso coffee, and that's what you don't get in many places. You get, I'm from Colombia, right? So Colombia, you drink coffee since you're very little, but it's very different how is it made over here.
In what way?
It's mostly, in Colombia, it's mostly, you use the coffee ground. Normally people wouldn't have a coffee machine at home. And it's pretty much filtered coffee, but you drink it is a lot weaker of what you normally drink it here, but you drink a lot during the day, so a lot more cups throughout the day.
So unfortunately, you've still probably got the volume habit, but the coffee's a lot stronger.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I need to cut down a bit.
Excellent. Well, I've only ever had 1 cup of coffee in my life, and when I did have it, fortunately, the Ashes, for the global listeners, it's a mad cricket game that is played between England and Australia. And fortunately, I had a double shot, which was not probably the best option to have for your first coffee. And I was basically awake all night, but it helped me watch the cricket. So there was some benefit, but I haven't gone back. So look, as you said, you came here 11 years ago. You've had several, roles in companies, some big brands, and then you finally jumped. Why don't you just take us through a little bit of that stepping stone to get to your own business?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was working at that time at a big engineering firm here in Australia, and I was having a role in the logistics department, in which I was doing really well. I jumped into business analyst, more of a business analyst role. I started working with data, a lot of data, business reporting, things like that, and the business started to change, and I also started to change as well. Well, the pivotal point was when my wife got pregnant and of my daughter.
Yes. And
then that's when I realized there's something else that I should be doing, not only working for someone else, basically. When I was little, I was always starting businesses, and I started my own thing when I was 12 years old at school. I started selling candies and go and buy them and then resell them in the school, things like that. Then I moved into buying and selling eggs door to door in a complex building where I used to live. So throughout all those experiences, I sort of when I started to university, they tell you that you're supposed to be working in corporate, right?
Yes.
That's the way it should be. You should go to. Then, so when I graduated, I worked in a manufacturing company on the floor. Actually, I started as an intern. Then I moved as a supervisor. Way too young. I was 20 years old. I was managing 50 people. A bit too much for what I wanted at that time. And we had some issues in the company, and I had basically I had to leave. So
right.
Too much responsibility for someone that young. That's why I say it now. At the point, I didn't understand why that happened, but now I get it. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So then I came here. I did go to Australia. I came and did some of my studies in logistics and project management. My background is industrial engineering from Colombia. And I wanted to go into corporate here. I was like, oh, well, they pay really good. Let's see how it goes. I was there for a few years. My daughter got pregnant, and I realized, yeah, that was not what I wanted to do. So I started looking into things online, and I actually built a website. I still have the domain. It was called beforetraveling.com. I built it from the scratch. I learned HTML. I learned CSS, the whole lot, just to realize that WordPress existed.
Yeah.
And I could have just bought a theme and put it in place, right? But good learnings. The intention of that website was to basically drive income through affiliate links, basically get a commission of travel booking and accommodation bookings, heavily based on content. So I was building relationships with travel bloggers and etc., to be able to drive traffic into the website and so on. So great exercise. I did that for probably a couple of years while I was working at the company and sort of on the side.
Yeah.
And then started working really well. I sort of replaced my income at that point. And I decided to jump ship into doing it full time.
Great. And that was around what, 2012?
2012, 13. Yep.
Yeah. Great. And
late 2012.
Great. And we'll talk more about what you currently do in a moment. But just why Australia? From Colombia to Australia, massive change. What brought about that?
Well, it's great question. It's a great question. I get asked that a lot, especially when people are getting to know me. So the reason was really that there wasn't any other options, because I wanted to go overseas, obviously, to study. And the course that I wanted to do, which was more in supply chain management, there was something similar in London, but London was really just not affordable for my family and myself. To sort of go there and study. The other option was Spain, which was great because I didn't have to learn another language. So I could just go there and do what I needed to do. But at the same time, I I wouldn't get on any other benefit but just the course. So I will pretty much have to work on Spain or go back to Colombia to work in South America.
Yes.
So I wanted to open the options to learn English as well, as a second language, and dominate the language and be able to do something more than just South America or Spain. So I went to an agency and they offered me Australia, and Australia sort of ticked all the boxes, and it was easy to sort of apply. The US has too many requirements for Colombia, or had too many requirements for Colombians at that time. And Australia was sort of ticking all the boxes. Really, it was just a process of elimination. It wasn't the first option. I didn't know anything about Australia when I came.
Well, it's probably like most Australians don't know a lot about Colombia. I'm spending a lot of time learning about Colombia and Venezuela at the moment. Great talent to support our community. But yeah, look, I must admit, don't know a lot about it. But it's interesting you talk about English. I suppose you more learn Australian than you do English. But it's definitely, as you know, there's definitely uniqueness that we have, and you sort of had this entrepreneurial flair right from an early age. When you finally made that shift in 2012, was it easier or harder than you thought?
I mean, I sort of had all the bases from what I did when I was young, but still, what I did was very ad hoc at the end of the day. I didn't have a structure for accounting or anything. And that's why none of those businesses when I was little sort of really flare. I mean, it was just money to enjoy life when I was young, Whereas this time it was more than that. So it was really, it had to be organized. I had to really go into budgets and, understand the financials. Luckily, my studies sort of gave me a lot of that. So definitely it was, there's been challenging times, as probably everyone who's listening to this podcast.
So take us to one of those times. Like always, ask people, is there ever a moment when you thought you'd go back to corporate? And, just take us to one of the toughest moments and tell us what it was and how you got through that.
Look, probably the first one that comes to mind, and probably was one of the hardest, is that when I left my corporate job with that travel website that was giving us a good income, well, pretty much the same income that I had when I was in corporate. Then pretty much within 4 to 6 weeks when I left, I lost it all.
Wow. How did you lose it all?
Well, I did the website myself, no security, no web development background, a lot of stuff. There was a lot of holes and opportunities for spam to get in and things like that. And the site was infected for a very long time and I didn't know. And the hosting company that I had at that time, they actually had to call me to tell me, hey, your site is infecting the whole shared hosting. So we need to take it down and we need to put it on quarantine. So they took it all down. They gave me a backup, but it was really unworkable. So I lost it all. And that really becomes what Trieste's business is today.
Wow. And
so
what were you and Jan?
Myself.
Yeah, and what were you and Jan thinking about at the time? Was had you burnt the bridge? Like there was, hang on, I'm going to make this work. I'm not going back to corporate, or was corporate still in the mix then?
Well, it was an option, right? But at the same time, I knew that if I went back, I was going to be in the same position of wanting to leave next day. So yes, I really wanted this to basically I really wanted to build my own business. I wanted it to work. So luckily my wife Jean, she's been very supportive from the beginning. Even when I made the decision to leave my corporate role, she said, well, if I trust you and I believe in you and I know you will work it out. That's basically what she said. And she said exactly the same thing when we lost this other side. And she was actually the one that pushed me. And she said, you need to get out of the house and you have a lot of stuff that you can teach people. Why don't you start doing some consulting? And that's where things started. I started working to networking events, started going to all these different places, started getting clients for consulting on digital marketing in general, which is a lot of the learnings that I had from that travel website was all about social media, how to do Facebook ads, how to do all that. and ultimately building a database, which was always the game with the travel side that I didn't do really well at that time. If I had a database at that point, I will be able to rebuild something, but database is really a key.
Yeah, right, great. And if you fast forward, if you look at that journey, sort of circa 6 to 7 years, who supported you? Who are the key people that have supported you? Obviously, you got your wife, but who else has supported you? Had a mentor, been in a mastermind? Is there anything else that's supported you?
Yeah, I have several mentors throughout time, and I guess one of probably the main ones is just books in general. I read, and I like reading, and I get ideas from a book. I probably read slightly different from the general people. I would say I don't read just for the joy of reading. I read with an idea of this book there must be something that I can implement, and I take ideas and implement them really quickly. So probably that's one of the first things that I would say is mentors and podcasts in general. Like this as an example, I became an information junkie. So I was eating information from everywhere. I had few people that I was following, and then a lot of what they were saying was sound, and I started implementing some of that. Then I came across a couple of coaches as part of what I was doing at that time, and in the networking events and etc. And I got coached by someone. His name is Clint Salter. Mm-hmm. He now does a lot more focused coaching to dance studios, but at that time he was coaching pretty much general businesses. He was general business coach. He helped me a lot, sort of clarifying a lot of things that I wanted to do. But then, yes, since then I've always had a coach in one form or another.
Great, brilliant. And if you can think of, just one key piece of information out of all those people that's really stuck in your mind, or what first comes to your mind, what would that be?
What does your customer want? That's probably one of the main things. What do they actually need? What do they actually want? And how can you convey that to them?
Brilliant, great. We'll move on to the build section now. So, you've talked about consulting digital marketing, but when someone comes and says, Jorge, what do you do? Or more importantly, as a customer, what can you do to help me? How do you answer that?
Well, digital marketing was really at the beginning and the last 3 years. So short answer, we help you building systems for sales and marketing automation on ActiveCampaign.
Right. And why ActiveCampaign? Why did you choose that as a platform?
Well, from the beginning, when I was working with email and etc., I was using Aweber at that time. Mm-hmm. And then Aweber is a very linear platform. So it was great at, 7 years ago, but it is not great now, especially when I wanted to create journeys of people moving because they click a specific something, they make a specific behavior, then to be able to trigger something else. So more complex journeys. Then I explored Infusionsoft, and with the clients that I was working at that time, they couldn't really afford Infusionsoft and they didn't even understand it. So I sort of bypassed the whole thing, and I came across ActiveCampaign, and I loved it in the way that is simple, is intuitive, and it's pretty much a blank canvas that you can build anything on it.
Yeah, and look, I know a lot of people, when we use the word marketing automation and CRM, it sort of gets a little confusing because there's, marketing automation, there's sales automation, and both, sales CRMs, I suppose, and marketing. Just how do you describe the differences between the two?
Cool. So marketing automation, the way I said, is it works more on the attraction side of things, right? So I divide marketing automation in 3 steps. Hence the name of the business, 3 steps business. Yes, I divided on attraction, conversion, and retention, and then marketing automation itself focuses more on the attraction side of things. Sales automations and CRM, they're focusing on the conversion. So as soon as someone gets into your pipeline, that's the handshake between the two.
Yeah, and what's your views on having, I know a lot of the marketing automation tools now are trying to also cover sales. I know ActiveCampaign's got a sales component. What's your view on using, one platform to do both, or having best of breed split? So one marketing and, like you said, the other sales for conversion.
In my opinion, it comes down to integration. I'm a big fan of data. And if you can get everything talking to each other, or at least the key, very, very key elements, from your sales platform talking to your marketing platform and have different triggers in between, then by all means. But I prefer to have them all in one, so I know that they are talking.
Great. And look, I think the other thing too is, volume as well. Like, definitely we recommend a dedicated sales CRM where it's more account management. And so you're having bigger deals that you're not doing as often. Whereas if you're doing a lot more at the front end and there's a lot higher volume of leads and therefore customers, and you're selling a lower price point, I think it makes sense to have it in one. But love that. And what do you know about, marketing automation that many of your clients don't?
Great question. In my opinion, marketing automation is a black box, and I think that's what I probably know more than our usual customers. They know the topic and they know the name, marketing automation, but they don't understand what's in it. And I think that's where we give a lot of value to really unpacking what that is itself, which is, as I mentioned to you, is not only about emails, it's really three different elements that play onto that, which is the strategy, tactics, and the actual system comes at the end. It's really unpacking all that.
Yeah, and look, I know, I'll declare Jorge's helped me with my active campaign and certainly opened up and shone a lot of lights in the dark spaces in that black box. And, what do you sort of, if you had to look at something that, is the most obvious thing that people could do? So they're listening at the moment, they've got active campaign and, your go-to, like where do you normally go to get the value that sometimes clients don't see?
The first thing is data. Most clients, they don't know how engaged their database is at all. And they may see the open rates and the click-through rates and etc., but they can't really measure it to a level, right? So this active campaign allows you to, talking about more about the platform, but more from the strategy perspective, is you wanted to know how many of your clients are actually engaged. And you should be able to get it really quickly. How many are engaged, how many are clicking, how many are opening, how many are visiting your website, and how many have actually purchased, right? So with those 4 elements, you will be able to identify how much money you're actually leaving on the table from your database. If you're having a database that is engaged, or they're opening emails but they're not clicking, and that click, it happens to be a sales email that goes to a specific checkout page, then you definitely understand the relationship between they're opening, they're not clicking. So there's something wrong there that you could improve and your sales will potentially increase.
Fantastic. And, who's your ideal client? Who do you love working with and get best results for?
Coaches and consultants are great to work with because they see the value, not only the value on the platform itself, but because they are working on most of the times on their own, and I have a very small team, then they will see the most of the value in saving time, especially during that sales process and marketing process, and having journeys mapped out that they know a client is going to go through the same process consistently, and that will allow them to actually scale.
Great. And talking about scaling, I know you've been, in this business for circa 6-7 years, as I said before. For the next 12 months, what's your growth rate? How much, is it 2 times, 4 times? How much do you want to grow the top line of your business?
Well, ideally would be 2 times, right? We've been growing consistently, probably at 1.5 to 2 at some. In last year was actually a particularly good year. We actually grew to a 2x, but I think that's a good rate without sacrificing customer service and quality, which is very important for us.
Great. And what's your sort of key focus? So to double the business, what's the sort of biggest driver? What's the key thing you can do to double your business?
Yep. So one of the key elements that we are introducing is a training platform in which we'll be able to help people that are not ready to work with us directly into doing it all for them on ActiveCampaign. They will have an opportunity to train themselves and to actually learn more about the platform, learn the strategies that we use with bigger clients, to apply them themselves, and we'll also give them shortcuts to be able to get that done too.
Great. And, you hear stats thrown around that, 3% completion on training, 7, but the completion rates are pretty low. What are you doing to ensure that your completion rates are higher than the average?
In my opinion, it's all about giving them the opportunity to talk to somebody. Most of the times when it comes to training, people get stuck is because they don't have anyone to ask a question, and usually it's a trivial thing that someone can answer it really quickly. So it's offering an opportunity for them to jump in a call where I'm going to be live answering questions, and they will be able to ask what is holding them up to be able to continue.
Great. And if you do grow it 2 times, what would change in your personal life with Jan, your daughter? Like, what does it give you if you do grow it 2 times?
Cool. One of the things that will definitely give us is freedom of money. One of them, of course, that's important. So money is the way I see it is just a resource to do better things in the world, and then for us to be able to reinvest that in some other intentions that we have, and most importantly, to leave a legacy for my family and to help my family back in Colombia as well.
Brilliant. Great. And what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge, the biggest obstacle in you doubling your business?
Most of the times it's yourself. And that's what I feel is been also a big change for the business, was that I've been able to identify that it's okay to let go and to trust the team, to work with the client, to think critically, to put forward ideas to make the business better, and that you need that you're not on this alone, and that you're able to do it with others. As soon as you understand that, that opens an opportunity to grow.
And how big's the team?
Right now, we've got a team of 7.
Great. And like you said, this letting go, what's one tip you can give everyone listening right now about letting go? Because I know that's a massive problem for solopreneurs, or a massive opportunity, I should say. But what really helped you let go more?
I guess is train your team as if, the way you work with a client, train your team to work the same way. And the way I see it, the more they see you in a way performing with the client and being with the client, and for them to be in a call with you, pretty much shadowing your moves, they will learn how to behave when it comes to their time. And then don't wait until they're ready. Just let them give it a go. And you can be there with them at the beginning, but just let them give it a go.
Great advice. And for you, your biggest source of leads, how do you get leads into your business?
There's a couple of ways. I work with some partners that I work very closely with. Some partners that are complementary to what we do. Mm-hmm. There's, for example, a marketing agency that we work with, and they refer leads to us. Also, networking directly on events with that are related to ActiveCampaign, to the platform itself. That's probably the biggest source of leads. And we also do advertising on Google AdWords.
Great. And do ActiveCampaign themselves send you many clients?
They do. Yes, they do. Yeah, you do get leads as part of being a partner of ActiveCampaign. You definitely get leads, and you get access to also some other opportunities.
Brilliant. Well, look, before we move into the live section, I'd like to talk about some killer content that we have on LinkedIn. So if you search Build Live Give, don't search BLG. I think it's a consulting company in Belgium. But search Build Live Give, and you'll find me as an employee. Send me a personalized invite. So say you've heard Jorge and myself on this podcast. also tell me what you think of it. That would be fantastic. And I'll give that feedback to Jorge as well. And then connect, and I give daily posts every day on LinkedIn. And, it's really there to help people double their business, like Jorge's planning to do, to fund your lifestyle and give back, which is very much in line with what Jorge said as well. So the next section is the live, as I said. So what are some daily habits that make you really successful?
The most important one is journaling. I wake up, I'm an early riser, so I'm normally up by 5:30 in the morning. And the first thing I do is to have a coffee.
I was going to say, it's got to be have a coffee. If you weren't going to say that, I was going to interrupt you. So,
No. It's my morning coffee together with my journal, and then before I touch my phone, my phone is my alarm. That's probably the first thing I do. So I just before I touch on social media, before I check my emails, before I do anything else, I sit down and I write thoughts around where do I want to go. And then just critically thinking on projects that I'm working on from the business perspective as well as clients.
Brilliant. And for you, like, what's your average for a week? How many hours do you work a week?
It varies, but normally it goes. It's a full week. It's a full week work week, anywhere between 30 to 35 hours. I normally try not to go over that. Obviously, sometimes you just can't help it and you just need to. But I try to keep it at that level and to keep the balance between family. I definitely do my morning drop-offs in school, and every day, at least 4 times a week, I pick up my daughter from school.
Brilliant. And, what are some of the things you do for me time? What do you do for you each week?
Cycling. I like cycling, so I try to go out at least 2 to 3 times a week, or minimum 2, and then just go for cycle run for about an hour, and that's my reset time.
Brilliant, great. And the next section is the give section. So, what's a community or a charity that you support, and why?
Yeah, currently at this point in time, we're starting to help out a bit more on the public school that my daughter goes to. She's Lenkoff Public School. So we help them with little things at this point. We are starting to get more involved. She just started school this year, but we're definitely supporting on a few things from there. And there's also, I've been supporting the Australian Red Cross for quite a while now, especially for children that they give some breakfast to. So that's something that we give every year.
Brilliant, excellent. And I know also you talked about giving back to your family in Colombia as well, which is great. So the next section is the action section. So I'll ask you some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
Productivity. That'll be probably one of the first ones. When you sit down to do, just create a list of things that you're going to achieve on the day. Probably that's tip number 1, create a list. Number 2, put them in your calendar and block out time. And number 3, just block out distractions when you're doing them. That will increase your productivity 2x every single day.
Great. And what's some, other than Active Campaign, what's some technology that you would find it difficult to run your business without?
We have a project management system called Teamwork. Teamwork connects to a help desk system that basically acts as a client communication system. So without those two, probably the business will collapse in a way.
And what's the help desk?
The help desk goes together with Teamwork projects.
Right.
It's called Teamwork Desk.
Okay.
They work hand in hand.
Okay, fantastic. And you talked before about books and podcasts. What other sources of business knowledge, other than those two, do you have?
I call it curiosity. So any questions that you may have, just don't hold back. Go into Google and you will find something that will lead you to a really good source of information, trying to find what you want to do. And that curiosity goes back to the journaling habit that I've got. When you're curious, you realize that a lot of the answers are already in you, from things that you've read in the past, from things that you've done in the past. and that will definitely help you. And then if you can't find them in Google and etc., definitely ask your coach if you have one, or if not, you definitely probably should join a mastermind or have a coach, someone that you can run ideas by.
Brilliant. And I know we touched on it before, but what is the last question is a big one, but what is the impact that you want to leave on the world?
I guess the biggest one is that people is not afraid of technology, and that they are confident to use technology for a greater good. That's one of, potentially I'll call it one of our criteria to work with anyone, is that they have a product that was going to help someone, and it's not a product that is, or a product or a service that helps somebody to grow as well. So I think we are all here to grow and give to each other in one way or another. And technology just enhances the opportunity to do that, and we shouldn't be afraid of it.
Brilliant. Well, look, I certainly sing from the exact same hymn book. If people collect different things, watches, whatever, I collect apps and technology. That's what I collect. So I'm very much with you there. So look, brilliant having you on the show. You can find out more about Jorge and 3 Steps Business. You can go to 3stepsbusiness.com/contact, and Jorge, you can get some time with him, and he'll really help understand where you're at now, but most importantly, where you want to be. And I know, I've searched high and low for fantastic active campaign consultants and strategists, and Jorge is great because I think he's got a holistic view. He just doesn't look at the tool. He actually looks at the whole business, and as he said, that attract, conversion, retention. He really does that well. So Jorge, thanks for coming on the show today and sharing all of your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. That was great to have this conversation with you and to be on the show.
Brilliant. Have a great day. I really enjoyed that interview with Jorge. It was fantastic. So what are my top 3 takeaways? So one is data to measure engagement. I know that I don't do this well, and I definitely will be post this. Having people support you to help with training completion rates. I think that's great because they are so low, and I think that, face-to-face or online support is really helpful. The other one is, your biggest challenge is yourself. And how often do I see that? How often do I face that myself? So get some help, whatever it is. And I know he gives some great suggestions. So you can get the show notes at buildlivegive.com. And if you'd love to be a guest on the show, just click the little email icon on our homepage, and you can contact support and we'll get you on. Please take action to build your business, to fund your lifestyle, and to give back.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.